Hey guys and girls, so I thought I'd do something, or try something, see if you all enjoy it. I thought I'd try and maybe do like a little midweek devotional, I don't know, reflection, thoughts, video blog, whatever you want to call it, and just share some things that God's been putting on my heart, and doing kind of in my own life, and I hope that maybe that speaks to you somehow. So I'll just jump into it with that. There's been a lot going on lately, kind of in my life and just in my outer life. The things happening in the world around me, job, relationships, what have you. And there's been a lot going on in my inner life. And what I mean by inner life is that part of you that no one else sees. That part of you that's only in your head, only in your heart. That part of you where you're always kind of wrestling with that voice that's telling you either sometimes how terrible you are, or in the negative times that how terrible you are, how you messed up, how you're not good enough. All those kinds of messages, or maybe it's just reflecting. But we all have this inner life, this part of us that no one else gets to see. But the reality is that no one else gets to see it unless we let them, or unless they're God. The Bible talks about the fact that God knows the inner workings of our heart. Like, man looks at the outside, but God sees our hearts. God sees those parts of us that we're sometimes too scared to share with other people. And I think in a way, even this video blog is, maybe I'll just call it that. I don't want to call it a devotional. But maybe this little blog reflection is part of that. And so there's something that was happening today that was really cool. There's been a lot going on, like I was saying, and the word that I would use to describe that, the word that kind of came to mind as I thought about, if there were one word to describe this season or this moment or how I've been feeling, the word that came to mind honestly was drowning. That sensation, that feeling of being overwhelmed, of having too much happening too quickly and not knowing which side is up, getting tossed by the waves going on around you. If you've ever gotten hit by a big wave in the ocean, it can knock you around, and then the riptide takes you, and just so much going on. And so the word was drowning. And I think there's aspects to which we've all kind of experienced that sensation. You as middle schoolers and high schoolers have experienced that to one extent or another. And so I've been wrestling with so what do I do with this sensation? What do I do with this? Because God has this pattern of, never abandoning us, never giving us more than I believe we're capable of handling. That life throws a lot at us, and God is right there with us in the thick of it, whether or not we realize it. And so as I've been experiencing this sensation of drowning, I've been just spending as much time with God as I can, because that's all I got. And so I went out and took a hike, which for me is a very calming and soothing and life-giving activity. And it's important too that all of you find those things that are life-giving, and those things that help you to feel and experience God's presence. I'd love to talk with you about what that might be for each one of you. But for me, it's hiking. And so I went out and I did this hike, and when I was posting the album on Facebook, the only, I never give captions to my hikes, really. I throw my pictures up there, and I let people comment, like them, do whatever they want with them. For me, it's just about sharing something that meant something to me and hoping that it means something to someone else too. Kind of like this. But this time there was a specific phrase that kind of came to mind, and it was like coming up for air. And I didn't even think about it, but that was actually what helped me realize and identify the word drowning for this sensation that I've been feeling. And so today I had this meeting with a friend of mine, another children's pastor at a different church, and we were talking about this, and she shared similar sensations and similar feelings about seasons of life that she'd gone through, and how she navigated that and what it was like. And as we were talking, and as she was sharing, I had this memory come to mind, and I spoke up about it and shared it with her, and it was just like, as you're talking, I'm getting this image of something that happened to me back when I was 16, 17 years old. When I was 16 or 17 years old, my church did a missions trip to the Dominican Republic. And it did amazing stuff. We did like VBS, and we helped kind of build the walls for a school for orphans. And halfway through the trip, though, we got like a free day because it was hard work. And on this free day, we went to this waterfall, and there was like a pool of water with this waterfall kind of coming partway into it, so you could swim all around where the water hit, or where the fall hit the water. And I had this genius idea to like swim to that point where the fall was hitting, not thinking about how like that creates this kind of current that sucks everything down with it. And so I got to that point and then realized like, oh, I'm getting kind of tired. I should probably swim back to dry land, which was probably a good 15, 20 yards in any direction. And so I'm tired, and I'm like, all right, time to turn around. So I turn around and I start swimming back, but realized that I had gotten too close to this point where the waterfall was hitting, and I was kind of stuck in this current. It was almost like a gravitational pull of this waterfall, and I realized that I wasn't making progress. In fact, I was getting pulled back closer and closer to the actual fall, which would have just sucked me down and like pinned me to the bottom of this thing, and I would have drowned. And so slowly this realization, well, probably realistically in seconds, pretty quickly, but this realization hits me that like I'm in trouble. Something's happening, and I'm stuck, and I can't push forward. I can't keep going. I can't get to the safety that I want to get to. No matter how hard I kick, no matter how hard I swim, I couldn't get there. And I was just giving it all I got, giving it my hardest fight, and making no progress. And I realized that I had, in that moment as I'm kicking, like I have maybe 10 to 15 seconds of energy before I'm done. And at that point, like I will drown. And I had the only thing that came to mind at that moment, the only idea I had that could save my life, was to swim down, because I had this kind of instinct, or this feeling that like if I got to the bottom, then maybe I could, I don't know, beat this current that was on the surface and find rocks to grab hold of. And this was the image that came to mind as I was talking with my friend about this season of life or this moment and drowning and all that, and I played back this memory and shared it with her and told her that like, so I made the choice, like, all right, I'm gonna drown if I keep doing what I'm doing, so I gotta take a risk and try something, and so I dove down to the bottom and like swam down and managed to find these rocks, and I start like dragging myself along the bottom and slowly like get far enough away that I feel release from the pull of the water, and then push off these big rocks and come back to the surface where I take the biggest gasp of my life. And And as I was thinking about it and praying about it, and talking with my friend about this, I had this realization. The Bible talks about God and Jesus as the rock of our salvation. Meaning that God is that strong place, that refuge that we can go to in times of need. Above, and every time I thought about that or imagined it, I'd always imagined like a mountain rock, like a rock that you can climb up onto and find safety and refuge from any dangers below. But I had never thought about the fact that in that moment when I was 16 years old, it was a rock, a series of rocks, but it was rocks that saved my life. But what I had never considered was the fact that it was rocks that were beneath the surface. It was rocks at the bottom. It was rocks in the most dangerous place that were my salvation. And what I felt like God was saying to me was that God wasn't waiting for me in this season of feeling like I'm drowning. God wasn't waiting for me to make it to Him at dry land. God wasn't at some far off point that I had to, by my effort alone, had to get to. Do you follow me? Instead, what I felt like God was saying to me was, God's right there in the thick of it. But the strategy that I might need might be to dive down deeper and find Him waiting for me in the water. And in the water, in the chaos, in the part of life that feels otherwise overwhelming and defeating and like it's going to kill me, that maybe there I'll find God. Maybe there I'll find relief. And as I realized that, and as I prayed about that, this whole day, I've just found such peace. This kind of realization that is God meeting me in this moment. Like God's not off waiting for me to get to Him. God's already down at the bottom in the thick of the water waiting for me to come to Him, to stop fighting and resisting and to just trust. And honestly, I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know, practically what that's going to mean for all these different real things, friendships, relationships, all the different ways that this is going to affect my life. But I now have this sense of peace and confidence that I'm not alone in it. That in the midst of feeling like I'm drowning, God's waiting for me to just stop resisting and dive in deep. And that is so exciting to me. And so I think about, your lives, the life in middle school and high school, and I wonder, if you feel like you are presently, in the waves, or if you feel like you're presently drowning, or if you see up ahead in the future, that rough sea, big waves, dark waves. If that's what you see up ahead or all around you, or you're already in the midst of it, I would encourage you to think about what it means for God to be your rock. And not only that, but where are you going to find that rock? Are you going to find it just a little ways off? Can you see it? Do you find that relief? Or does finding Jesus, does finding salvation, does finding hope and joy and peace in this moment mean letting go and stopping resisting God and just trusting giving God a chance to lead you into new life, to something better, to new friendships, to maybe let go of old friendships, to choose life in whatever way that means. Something to think about, because it's definitely something I'm thinking and praying about. And if you'd like to talk, if you'd like to share what your waves are like, what your drowning experience is like, or maybe someone you care about, I would love to talk with you about that. So please feel free to reach out to Melissa and I. Talk to your parents. You're not alone. You're not drowning by yourself. There are people who are either in the water with you. There are people like me who are probably already down beneath you, right in the midst of my own drowning, but finding peace and finding hope and finding joy throughout it. Yeah, we're here for you. We love you. You guys are awesome. Hope you have a good night.